Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. Creepy Guy at the Mall by Hooligal. I was at a large outdoor mall in Columbus, Ohio, and wanted to do a little shopping before going into work nearby at 2 p.m. So keep in mind, this happened on a Wednesday afternoon in May. I parked on the first floor of a garage, a road directly across from the main entrance of the indoor mall area towards the back. As soon as I parked, I made eye contact with a guy walking in the next row. I'm a female and I was 26 at the time, and this guy looked to be around my age, if not younger. He turned towards me and started walking my way. I put my head down and started gathering my things, and the next thing I knew, he was knocking on my window. I can't remember if I already had the window down or if I rolled it down more, but anyway, the window was almost halfway down. He asked me where the closest restroom was, and I told him there was one as soon as you walked in the main entrance of the mall. He said he didn't know where that was, and if I would show him there. I pointed and said, "You literally just need to walk down this row and go through the doors and the signs will be right there." But he really wanted me to show him where it was. He just stood there and looked at me for what felt like forever after he realized I wasn't going to get out and show him to the restroom. He then asked me if he could hop in the back seat real quick, and that's when my confusion went to panic. I really started to panic. I don't even remember if I responded to that right off the bat. He just kept going on and on, asking if he could get in, and then asked to hook up in the back seat. I, being a nice person I guess, just said, "No thank you, I have a boyfriend. I'm sorry." To which he responded, "It's okay, I have a girlfriend and I love her." This just kept going on, me telling him I needed to go and get to work, and that I was sorry. He just kept texting or something with his phone during this conversation. I was afraid he'd try to open my door, and I didn't want to lock them and somehow trigger this guy into doing something else. Somehow, I finally got the courage to start the car back up, reversed it, and got the absolute F out of there before he could say anything else. I worked a couple of blocks away and hurried into the building before I called security. I have no idea what this guy's intentions actually were, but I truly felt that he was trying to get me out of the car and possibly had other people close by. Maybe he really did just want to hook up. But who in their right mind goes about it in that kind of way? Or was he baiting me for human trafficking? Or was he just trying to rob me? He just seemed to be a normal person until the interaction furthered. Thankfully, I was in a rental car because mine had been stolen exactly 3 weeks prior to this happening. I'm just very happy this guy did not see what I typically drove if he had to snag the license plate and make or model of the car. What do you think this was? Anyone have a similar experience? It's been about 2 years now, and I still think about this. My Father's Experience Growing Up in England by Marcangelo 319. I remember the first time my father told me this, and it sent chills down my spine. Though we all live in the States now, my father grew up in northern England. Anyone who has spent time up there knows that, especially in cities like York, stories of hauntings are very common. The whole country feels like it's run by ghosts sometimes. My father was a kid when this took place, but my uncle, who is 5 years older, has also attested to this story's validity. Not only are the cities haunted, but an epicenter of these haunts appears to be the variety of old cathedrals that are common all over the country. My father and my uncle were visiting one of these behemoths, and for whatever reason, my grandparents were already outside, and the two kids had lagged behind. These cathedrals are usually well decorated and beautiful, so it is fairly common to go in the off hours and spend time touring, even when no one else is around. As my father was on his way out, all of a sudden, the boys heard a short tune played on the organ upstairs. In a building so large, the organs can be massive, so when they are played, it's a hard thing to miss. My father and uncle thought there was no one else in the building with them, so curiously they wandered up the spiral staircase to see who was there. As my uncle got to the top of the stairs, he turned in the direction of the organ and went pale. He looked like he couldn't quite figure out what he was staring at. My dad peered over the balcony ledge to see what drew such a reaction from my uncle. And apparently, not only was there no one up there, the organ was also locked up tight. And upon looking around further, they concluded that there wasn't even another way off the balcony other than the staircase they came up. My father has described feeling this like a massive weight dropped in his stomach and dread overcoming him. Both of them tore out of that cathedral as fast as they could. I've asked my dad a ton of questions over the years about this incident to try and get as much context as I can. What he has told me is that even if there was another way off the balcony, the amount of time between the organ playing and them getting up the stairs was probably 20 seconds. Likely not enough time to close the organ up and magically disappear. That's hard enough to pull off even for a ghost. I don't believe that my dad ever went back there. Middle school bully stalked and attacked me by not thinking straight. For context, I'm from a small town that houses 3 different elementary schools, and only one middle school and high school connected by the gymnasium and a tunnel between the 2 buildings. I'd lived there my entire life, and I went to a different school than most other people mentioned in this story. Back when I was in middle school, I had a litany of bullies who loved making every moment of my day a living hell. They did pretty much everything you could think of, ranging from pranks in the middle of class to downright physical assault. But all of them were nothing compared to this one girl I met at the beginning of 7th grade, who I'm going to call Sadie. Sadie was the stereotypical mean girl in every sense of the word. Loved fashion, had a gaggle of friends willing to do her bidding, and every guy was into her or wanted her. She was the kid with the highest amounts of detentions, argued a lot with teachers, and the principal pretty much did nothing about her actions. She also made a habit of having fun with some specific kids, which included me. I was a plus-sized kid, a scaredy cat, gullible, and a bit of a pushover. But I did try to do well in school and kept to myself, but that didn't do much. As soon as Sadie took notice of me, she took it upon herself to make sure every time we even saw each other, she'd make me miserable. At the beginning, it wasn't anything much. She started rumors about me, talked shit about me online. I didn't have social media yet, so I didn't find out about that until later. And in school, and threw things at me that ranged from her garbage to one of her textbooks. It wasn't terrible at first. Sadie was annoying, sure, but I had workarounds, so I just ignored her. But when other kids saw that I wasn't going to fight back, they joined in and took things way too far. Almost daily, I was chased in the halls, ganged up on in the bathrooms, had my food stolen, gotten blamed by the teachers for their dumb actions in class, and many other things. These kids had me on edge and feeling practically worthless for the entire school year, to the point of me considering just running away to avoid going back to that hell of a school. Why didn't I tell the school, you ask? Well, I tried. Dozens of times. Teachers, guidance counselors, even the principal. But they didn't care. The school was honestly not the best, and they were pretty negligent to everything that didn't involve fun, sports events, and GPAs for the year. So they gave no heed to me when I tried to tell them what was going on with Sadie and her lackeys. These are some of their real responses from incidents that happened. When I had gotten my backpack thrown down the stairs and a calculator inside that I had brought from home got broken, they said, "It's your property, your problem." When Sadie had written a fat joke alongside a slur in my locker door in permanent marker, they said, "You have no evidence that it was her." When Sadie's boy toy and his friends cornered me outside the changing rooms for Jim to ask me for something, they said they were probably just kidding around. All of these things were spearheaded by Sadie, who was practically in charge that year, and nothing she did was getting her into trouble. Summer could not come fast enough that year. By the time 7th grade was over, they let those kids get away with so much, and I honestly gave up on trying to get outside help at that point. As I got some personal help that summer, I decided that things would be different by the time I had to go back to school for the following year. I was not going to be Sadie's personal punching bag anymore. When 8th grade started up, I was ready. I learned MMA self-defense. I defended myself vocally. I wasn't so quiet anymore, and I fought back. And it worked. None of the old bullies from last year even looked my way again. Except for Sadie, who still tried to pull her usual stunts. But the longer I showed I didn't care, the more it pissed her off. Honestly, it felt like ample revenge to all the shit she had put me through last year. Sadie, however, would not let it go for the life of her. I didn't know it then, but this whole act of hers would end up taking a bad turn. One day I was walking to the gym with Sadie following close behind me. She didn't share a gym class with me, but she did like following me around in between classes and trying to get a rise out of me. This day, however, was not great for me. I don't exactly remember why now, but I was stressed out, and I kept getting pissed off over anything that went wrong that day. Sadie, following behind, trying out different insults and comments about me, sent me over the edge. In a quick motion, I stopped walking, spun around, pushed Sadie backwards, and spit towards her, with it landing on her leg. I told her to just fuck off and leave me alone. I didn't know what I was really expecting her reaction to be, but it sure as hell wasn't what she did. Sadie just stood there, frozen, staring at me. I expected her to be coughing up blood from rage, or her screaming, or anything at all. But she just stood there, as if a deer in headlights. I didn't think about it at the time, as I left for gym not long after, and eventually I forgot about it. After school, I was walking across the school building to head for the parking lot next to the high school building where I was to catch the bus. Everything felt normal, until I saw Sadie not far behind me. I didn't think anything weird of it, so I ignored it and kept walking, until I noticed she was taking the same path I was to the buses. That wouldn't have been odd if she actually rode the buses at all. Sadie walked to and from school every single day. And if not that, someone would come pick her up, but the carpool lot was in the opposite direction of the buses. I took a different path than my normal route, around the back of the school. I looked back to check, and yep, Sadie was taking the exact same path I was, and she stopped walking every time I looked back at her. I began picking up the pace a bit, and from behind I could hear her running to catch up. By the time I was nearing the bus lot, she was somewhere around 10 feet right behind me, still jogging to follow me. I definitely did not want her to learn which bus was mine, nor did I want her to follow me home, so I decided to fake her out. I jumped onto a different bus, much to the dismay of the driver, and Sadie ran in after me. After she got in front of the bus driver to yell at her about something, I ran off and raced to my actual bus, which was all the way on the other end where this particular bus was. I got in, and the bus drove away just as Sadie got off to see where I went. The next day, I didn't see Sadie anywhere at school. Not in any of the classes, not at lunch, not even after school either. I asked, but nobody knew where she went. This went on for the rest of the week. The bus incident took place on a Monday, and the disappearing act happened on Tuesday. By Thursday, I began to relax about the whole thing. I still didn't understand what Sadie was doing with the whole bus incident, but as long as she was gone, things felt okay. Until Friday afternoon came along. Like the last few days, Sadie wasn't there, so I was pretty relaxed for most of it. When the end of the school day came, I was about to walk out of the front doors to the building when something stopped me. I had a horrible feeling in my stomach, telling me to not go outside. I had no idea where that came from, but I thought it was just my leftover anxiety playing tricks on me. So I headed out anyway, not still twisting. The middle school and high school were all part of one connecting path system, which means we all had hallways and walkways connecting both the main middle school and the main high school buildings, with one long sidewalk path out front. The parking lot where I had to walk to my bus was on the opposite end of this long sidewalk, which ran in front of both the middle school and in front of the high school. This could make for a pretty long walk, and the doors leading into the high school often flooded with students, making for some interesting obstacles. This would all come into play when this happened. I had just walked down the outside stairs to the sidewalk when I saw someone run around a corner of the building. I looked over, and it was Sadie, looking as pissed as a rabid dog, full sprinting right towards me. I bolted, running faster than I ever had in my whole life, running off nothing but pure adrenaline and fear. Sadie was catching up quickly behind me, and all I could do was run and pray for help. I dodged between crowds of kids and just tried to lose her somewhere in the masses, not caring at all if I bumped into people, only afraid that Sadie was still behind me. By the time I reached the buses, I didn't see her anywhere, so I stopped and nearly collapsed to catch my breath. I felt relief for only a second, until she popped out of nowhere from the side of the crowd and lunged at me. Sadie grabbed me by the hair and backpack, swinging me around in a circle as I tried to get her off me. She kept pulling and jerking so much I felt my hair being ripped at some points, but she kept going. I screamed for help, kicking and punching blindly in Sadie's direction, but either nobody wanted to get involved or were too scared to break us up, because nobody came forward. Sadie let go of my hair to reach for something behind her, and what happened next was only a miracle. My older brother was walking out of the high school drinking a soda when he saw the scene and ran to help. He was the only one who knew about Sadie and recognized her when we had gotten to school in the mornings. He threw his soda at Sadie's head, which startled her enough to let me go and drop whatever she was holding. I grabbed my brother and we took off for the bus, making it just before it drove off. After we found a seat, I looked back outside. What I saw still gives me chills. Sadie was on the ground, arms pinned by a teacher, and right on the ground next to her was an open hunting knife. I knew without a doubt that was hers because of the sound I heard when she dropped it earlier. Next Monday, I got called down to the office where my brother was also waiting. We got pulled into the counselor's office where there were 2 police officers waiting. Apparently, after we ran, a high school teacher saw Sadie picking up the weapon and apprehended her, while another person called the police. They got Sadie into an interrogation, and now they needed to hear what happened from me. I practically broke down right then and there and told them everything. What Sadie did to me last year, what I almost did because of her torment, the bus incident the week prior, and what happened on the sidewalk. My brother put his arm around me while I just sat there nearly sobbing my words out. The police and the counselor just sat there writing down what I had said, but they looked on sympathetically. One of the officers asked me if I would like to tell my parents so they could press charges. At that point, I just wanted everything to end about this horrible situation and it to be done. So I just told them to do whatever they wanted. I just wanted this to stop. The counselor could tell I was already upset enough, so he sent me back to class, and me and my brother made a promise to never speak of it again. Sadie ended up getting into juvie for the rest of the school year, all the way until halfway through the second semester of freshman year of high school. The school also had some changes to it too. Police officers were now on duty during school hours in the middle and high schools, and we had stricter policies with bullying, and kids could now stay with teachers before, during, and after school if they needed to. I never saw Sadie again after that, not even in passing. I later learned from one of her friends that after senior year she dropped out to get her GED because the incident on her police record meant college was impossible. It's been over 9 years since that day on the sidewalk. I will admit this is honestly not as bad as what other kids probably have to go through, but I still feel the trauma from that time in middle school, and especially from what Sadie did to me. After middle school, I had developed depression, severe social anxiety, and PTSD from the bullies. I can't fully blame the situation for everything, as maybe if I pushed a bit harder with the teachers and the principal, maybe this wouldn't have happened in the first place. But eventually things did end up getting better. I just wish I could go back to my 13-year-old self that I had to endure all of that and say that everything was going to be okay. I'm doing better now. I'm looking into therapy. I'm in university, and I cannot be prouder of how far I've come. So, to the psychopath of a bully that tormented me all those years ago and almost stabbed me, let's not meet again. Someone is Watching Me Update by Brilliant Bex. Crap, crappy, crappity crap, and fuck everything right now. I didn't think I would ever have another update. I feel enraged, scared, helpless, and so many other things right now as this just happened. Basically, I'm either a beacon for creeps, I kind of am, but this is ridiculous at this point, or the guy they caught trying to get into my mom's car was not, in fact, the one watching me. Last night around the same time, I noticed a car that was parked sort of in front of my house, but from their angle, it gives a good view through my window. I had to start opening it again due to the heat, and anyway, I thought the other trouble was over. I actually usually park in this spot, but it was taken up the other day and I parked elsewhere, which is only important because I know that spot has a good view into my window. They sat there in their car idling for a good 10 to 15 minutes and then left. I didn't really find it weird as I figured maybe they had to input directions or take a call, etc. That happens often. Cut to tonight. I don't know exactly when the car appeared, and because of where they park, the tree in front of my window, I know they can see me, but the spot is too dark to see them. I didn't notice at first, but when I did, it was a 10-minute stay and they drove off. But this time I watched their taillights go around the corner, and they looped back to park closer, their windshield facing me this time. It was definitely the same car, and no one exited. I closed my curtain and watched through the camera as they just sat there. I could even kind of see the silhouette of the person in the car from the video I took, but because of where they parked, the camera had a bad angle and it was too far to get any detail, but it looked like the same kind of car. This freaks me out more, because it was like they knew where the cameras were and were actively avoiding them. It's possible after everything I'm paranoid, but to me this came across very creepy and suspicious. I could see them just sitting there, lights on, car running in the dark. But I'm still afraid. I've done the suggestions given on my past updates, and although they're helping, I just can't stop being afraid. And what if this is a new person? I've connected and reconnected with a few people, and while I can't picture it being them, I feel suspicious of everyone right now. I feel like it's just necessary to do this part, and I'm using it almost like a mantra at this point. But, to the person outside my window, leave me the fuck alone, and let's never meet. He Wanted My Dog and Me by Cleotaurus Green. This happened a few years ago, and I was walking my dog like I always did. We stayed in a small town where nothing ever happened and most people would be in by 7 p.m. I used to walk my dog every morning around 6, so not many people were out, and I walked that way every day. I usually went with my mom, but that night I went by myself because my mom was busy. I was walking by the main road, and the other side of the path was a shop. My dog decided to poo on the ground right outside the shop. Embarrassed, I picked it up and saw a silver car pull up and stop outside the shop. At first I thought it was someone going to stop in there. So I picked things up and stood up straight and was about to continue walking when the man in the car rolled down his window and said hi to me. I could hear that he wasn't English and thought he must be on holiday and needed directions. In the passenger seat was another man holding a notepad and pen, and in the back was a dog cage. I said hi back, and he asked me where a certain hotel was. I told him where, and he thanked me, and when I was about to walk off, he said, "How much for the dog?" I stopped and looked at him confused, and he again said, "How much for the dog?" I told him she wasn't for sale, and noticed the man in the passenger seat was writing something in the notebook. The man laughed and said he loved dogs, and then asked, "Well, how much for you, then?" Him asking me about my dog creeped me out, but that other question was way too creepy. I said, "I'm not for sale," and laughed awkwardly, and again the man in the passenger seat wrote something down in his notebook. He laughed again, and I said I had to go and started to walk fast back towards home. When I turned around the corner, I looked behind me and saw the car was following me. I didn't want to go home because then they would know where my house was, so I went down an alleyway where a car couldn't go, and I lost it. About a year after that, I was in a Zoom, and a boy that is from another town not far from mine and a few other people and a teacher were telling each other weird things that have happened to them. And the boy said that one time he was walking his dog, and a silver car pulled up next to him and was asking weird questions about his dog, and then asked him if he had any sisters for sale. I told him what happened to me, and we both knew it was the same man. He also said there was a man with a notepad in the passenger seat and a cage in the back of the car. What made me want to share this story is because a few months ago my mom's friend said her friend was walking her dog, and a man in a silver car asked to buy her dog and then followed her. When she went into her brother's house, he came outside and the car drove off. To the man who asked to buy me and all these other people, let's not meet again. Hey gang, thanks for listening to this episode of Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. If you have a true scary story of any nature that you'd like to hear narrated on this channel or my podcast, email it to unclejoshtruescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. It seems from time to time there's some confusion about my email address, and I'll say it again. unclejoshtruescarystories@gmail.com. Other than that, there's a link to it in the description below, and you can also find me on social media. Links to that are in the description as well. If you haven't already, please like, share, and do me a huge favor. Subscribe to this channel. It helps out a lot. And share it with your friends. Leave a comment if you can. I love reading those, and I respond to them as quickly as I can. If you'd like to take your support a step further, find me on Patreon. There's a link down there. And you can also see my storefront on tpublic.com. Get yourself some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.